Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be answering some of your questions about how to get into medical school and how to study for the GAMSAT. Over the past 1 or 2 years, I've been making videos about medical school admissions, GAMSAT study techniques, and about my life more generally as a doctor. And so I thought I'd take this opportunity to answer some of the questions that you've left in the comments to some of my videos, because I know that a lot of you probably have similar questions at home, and hopefully you'll find this video helpful. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so the first question is from Casa Vega 4629. They say, "Hi Adam, thanks for the video. I'm going to start to prepare for the GAMSAT. As of today, what are the main study resources that you think are a must?" Well, Casa Vega, glad you asked. As I mentioned, over the past few years, I've been helping countless students preparing for their GAMSAT attempts, and in particular, coaching them for Section 2 of the GAMSAT, which is why I put together a course called the Essay Guide. The Essay Guide is an affordable yet comprehensive GAMSAT preparation course that doesn't require you to spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on GAMSAT preparation material. I truly believe that GAMSAT preparation material should not cost an arm and a leg, so this is an affordable yet comprehensive GAMSAT preparation course focusing on the essay section of the GAMSAT. We opened up the course to our first cohort of students in the March 2025 sitting of the GAMSAT this year, and we've already received amazing feedback. Students who have struggled to score over 60 in the essay section now scoring 70 plus in the essay section consistently. So if this sounds like something you might be interested in, check out the link in the description of this video and check it out and join the Essay Guide today. But now that we've got that quick plug out of the way, let's move on to the rest of the questions. I thought I'd structure questions by going through questions related to medical school admissions first, and then we'll cover GAMSAT related questions after that. Okay, so the first question says, "Dear Adam, my kids are in year 11 in Victoria. They want to do medicine. Please can you advise what needs to be done?" Now, this is a really broad question, obviously, and I think it's a great question to start with because this is the point in time where a lot of students, and particularly those wanting to study medicine, start to think about medical school and what that might entail. And myself included, in year 11, I was starting to think about what I wanted to do after school, and medicine being one of those things. And so if I were a year 11, the first thing I'd probably think about is ensuring that all of my subjects fulfill the prerequisite subjects that most medical schools require. When I was applying for medical school, there were things like chemistry and English, and ensuring that you score above the minimum threshold that each of those medical schools require in those subjects. The next thing I'd be thinking about is a UCAT, which is the Undergraduate Medical School admissions exam or thereabouts. And essentially anyone who wants to study medicine as an undergraduate is required to complete the UCAT. So I'd start to think about that as early as you can. I don't think it's necessarily, mandatory or essential to prepare for the UCAT all the way at the start of year 11. In fact, that's probably way too early unless you're planning on sitting it as a year 11. But just start to think about what the exam entails and how you might prepare for it, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to be balancing those things with your year 12 exams as well. And that brings me on to the next thing, which is year 12 exams. At the end of the day, these are the overarching exams that will help you get into a degree, whether it be medicine or another degree after high school. So this is ultimately the thing you should probably dedicate the most amount of time to. Medicine is a competitive degree to get into. So your high school score will ultimately help you go a long way into getting into undergraduate medicine. But all of that aside, I really want you to think about a few other things. Now, the first being that getting into undergraduate medicine straight after high school is by no means the be all and end all if you want to be a doctor and if you want to study medicine. Myself, I completed an undergraduate degree in biomedical science, and then I went to medical school after finishing biomedical science. There are so many different pathways that people take to study medicine, and if it's really something you want to do, I would encourage you to consider all of those different pathways. When I was in year 11, it was pitched to me as the plan B. So plan A obviously being getting into medical school straight away out of high school as an undergraduate. But for me, hearing plan B ultimately made me kind of feel like a failure a little bit. But I think ultimately there are so many benefits that you will get and attain from studying something else before going straight into medical school. It's definitely not the only route. Think about all the different degrees you might want to study aside from medicine. And if you really want to study medicine after that, think about how those degrees can tie into helping you get to that final destination. But the final thing I want to leave you with, and I know this has been a bit of a rant so far, but this really is my mantra. Anyway, really try and enjoy the last couple of years of school. You look back on it and you feel like it just went so quickly, but high school can be a really unique, amazing experience. And I hope it is for you guys watching this. It's an opportunity to hang with people you go to school with every day and make the most of that time and experience in your life. And ultimately, when you look back on it, those are the things that stand out. So really try and make the most of it, enjoy your experiences, and try not to think too hard about medical school and what lies beyond that. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Len8760 said, "Hi, what undergraduate did you do?" Essentially, I studied a Bachelor of Biomedical Science. As I said before, this was my plan B. I didn't get into undergraduate medical school straight out of high school. This was a fantastic degree. It's an extremely common degree for people to study as a pathway into postgraduate medicine, primarily because it fulfills a lot of the traditional kind of prerequisite subjects for postgraduate medicine, things like biochemistry, biology. And I don't regret studying biomedical science at all. It gave me an opportunity to delve into public health, which is something that I've since become incredibly passionate about. But having said that, there are a lot of other pathways that you can consider. Things like studying a Bachelor of Science is also a really common pathway to getting into postgraduate medicine. Considering other clinical degrees can be really valuable because you're left with a tangible degree that gives you, a specific job at the end of the day. Things like studying pharmacy, things like nursing even, things like physiotherapy, occupational therapy. But on top of that as well, take a look at the prerequisites for each of the postgraduate medical schools because they vary dramatically and some of them don't even have prerequisites, meaning you can study things like arts, commerce, engineering, gather all that information, and if medicine is something you really want to do, then pick the degree that you think you're going to enjoy the most, and that will ultimately give you the best chance of getting into postgraduate medicine as well. ARG1Q8H says, I want to go to med school, yet I don't feel like I'm in love with biology, chemistry, and all of that. Yes, I find this area very interesting, but also scary. Any tips? Well, that's an excellent question. I also never studied biology before studying my biomedical science degree or medicine. So I think there's two ways you can probably look at this. Yes, medicine and biomedical science is very biology and chemistry heavy. So you do really need to consider how much am I willing to, sacrifice to study medicine or something like that if biology and chemistry is not something that I enjoy. On the other hand, people often say that medicine is more an art than a science, and I think it is in a lot of ways. Once you get over that and you get a really solid grounding and foundation in all of it, it enables you to kind of excel and better appreciate the clinical side of medicine, which when you're practicing it is the thing that probably is going to be most valuable for your patient. Yes, there's the biology and chemistry components, but clinical medicine and working with patients and examining patients and finding out how all of these different components fit together is also a really big part of medicine as well. Okay, so next question. Thank you very much for the helpful information. Do you know what the typical GAMSAT score requirements are for international students? It would be even better if you have specific information for UCID. Now, this is a really common question that I get asked. Look, to be truthful, I was the same. I wanted to know what all the cutoffs were. So I used to recommend to people to go check out Paging Doctor. I've since been informed that Paging Doctor, the forum, has now been shut down, but there is a similar spreadsheet available through the GAMSAT Reddit forum, which I can link in the description below. Essentially, it's a reasonably comprehensive spreadsheet that has lots of different people's GAMSAT scores, their GPAs, and which medical schools they interviewed at and subsequently received an offer to study at. It definitely isn't fully comprehensive, so I wouldn't consider it as the Bible, but it is a useful tool in getting a bit of an understanding of what your chances are. So PJ Mech X4Q. Nice. Hi Adam, thanks for sharing your story. I'm doing nursing and wondering how to get into medical school. Do they count nursing GPA or not? If you have any info, that would be helpful. So as I said before, nursing is a somewhat common pathway to get into medical school. I studied with a couple nurses in my postgraduate medical course. And yes, they do consider your nursing GPA. To apply for medical school, they'll consider your past 3 full-time years of study. So if a nursing degree is 3 years, and that was the most recent block of study that you completed post-high school, then they'll consider all of those 3 years as your GPA that you'll use for your medical school applications. Hope that helps. Zarina Sheikh 7515 says, is it worth studying medicine after biomedical science honors? And does it help in reducing any med years? Well, it's a good question. No, firstly, it doesn't reduce any years. It's considered purely on the biomedical science portion of your study, so it's not part of your postgraduate medical degree, so to speak. Is it worth studying biomedical science honors? Well, I can tell you that a lot of people who want to get into medicine will study a biomedical science honors if they didn't get into medical school directly after finishing their undergraduate degree. So for example, after completing my biomedical science degree, if I had then not directly gotten into medical school thereafter, then my plan would have been to study an honors year in biomedical science. And essentially what that means is it's another year for you to hopefully improve your GPA, but it is also a really great opportunity to do some research and get your name on a paper, which at that point in time doesn't feel like the be all and end all, such a big deal. But now where I am kind of thinking about specialty training and what I want to do within medicine, having a bit of research under your belt can actually be really valuable later on in your career as well. Tokyo City 9491 says, thank you for sharing this information. How failing a couple of subjects will affect your application? I know it's bad for your GPA, but is it going to affect your application at all? Well, it's a good question. So there are a few elements here. I think firstly, if you fail the subject and then are able to pass it again, meaning that you can then graduate, then that's essential. You need to have an undergraduate degree completed to be able to then apply for medical school successfully. I guess the next thing to consider is the impact on your GPA. So obviously failing a subject will have a negative impact on your GPA, and that'll probably bring it down a bit. But if you pass that subject again, then the only impact that it'll have, I guess more globally, is that it will lower your GPA. You can still then apply for medical school. The only scenario I could see in which that failing would prohibit you from studying medicine is if that particular subject that you failed was a prerequisite to your postgraduate medical degree that you're applying to. So for example, if your medical school that you're applying to required you to study anatomy and you failed anatomy and then didn't resit anatomy and then instead did another course, then that would probably prohibit you from applying to that particular university. But at the end of the day, there are plenty of other universities that have different prerequisites. So my answer would be no, it doesn't, prohibit you from applying to medical school. Okay, so the next question, Vina Kara 3322 says, "Hi Adam, I'm pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Nursing from the University of Wollongong, and I'm planning to sit the GAMSAT. Can you tell me what my strategy should be, and from where do I prepare from here?" So I think this is a really good question, and now we're kind of venturing into the GAMSAT territory as well. So I think we've already established that the GAMSAT is an essential component to studying postgraduate medicine for basically all postgraduate medical schools. So you have to start considering how you're going to start preparing for the GAMSAT. The next thing you need to consider is your GPA. As we said before, you can use your GPA from your nursing degree, that's fine. The other thing is, I guess, focusing on what you want to do as a career in the long term. In this particular situation, you're studying nursing. Do you want to become a nurse? Do you want to study medicine? Nursing is an incredibly intensive degree, or it can be at least, because what people don't often recognize is there's quite a few hours of practical placement that you have to spend in the hospital. This takes up a lot of time and it can be quite exhausting and draining. So you need to consider your ability to kind of balance placement, study, and preparing for the GAMSAT and those sorts of things as well. So where do you start from here? That's a good question. I think if you're just starting your nursing degree, it's probably a bit too early to start thinking about studying for the GAMSAT unless you really want to start this early and sit the GAMSAT, every year of your nursing degree from here on out. But I think probably the first thing would be to try and get a really good grounding in your nursing degree, try to score well, try to get a good GPA, because that will ultimately go a long way to preparing you for medical school as well. And then you can start to think about the GAMSAT after that. Hope that helps. Okay, so moving on to some of the GAMSAT-centric questions now. Jacob Michael asks, do you have any tips for juggling GAMSAT study with undergrad study? Struggling to find a good balance. Jacob, you've come to the right place. Honestly, it's one of those things that is really hard to do. And I can sit here and say, do this, this, and this, but practically, it's really hard to find a good balance, and I think it's about being able to get through the really busy periods of juggling both things and getting to the end of it, essentially. For me, probably the thing that was most beneficial in terms of trying to strike somewhat of a balance or making sure that I could really get the most out of my uni studies and my GAMSAT studies was spending the summer before my March GAMSAT, dedicating it to preparing for the GAMSAT whilst I didn't have to worry about my university studies at all. So what that meant was studying maybe a couple hours a day for the GAMSAT over the course of the summer, really getting a strong foundation in my GAMSAT studies, my understanding of each of the different sections, so that by the time I came to university and the semester started, I wouldn't feel too overwhelmed and trying to cram all of this knowledge in my brain while also trying to juggle all the knowledge that I'm trying to absorb from my uni studies as well, right? Because if it's your final year in your university degree, that counts a lot as well to your GPA and to applying for medical school. So it's really hard to be able to juggle both and balance both, but for me, that was probably the thing that gave me the best chance of finding somewhat of a balance as well. Yeah, cut yourself some slack, give yourself a break every now and then, because that will also help you mentally be able to juggle things and cope with things a bit better as well. Okay, so Audacity of Faith 7667 says, I don't know where to begin or how to prepare. Well, you've come to the right place because that's what we're here for. Basically, all of the videos that I've created to date on my channel have been helping students try to find somewhat of a grounding in how to prepare, how to start studying for the GAMSAT. So first step I'd say is check out the rest of the videos in my channel. The next thing I'd say is if you're looking for a course to prepare for, check out the essay guide. And now that those plugs are out of the way, I would say start by researching, honestly. Start by watching videos online of how different people have approached it. It goes a long way. Start by talking to people and understanding how they approach things as well. If you know anyone either a year ahead of you or a few years ahead of you who have gone through the same things. When it comes to preparing for the GAMSAT, obviously there are 3 different distinct sections. So I ultimately think that sections 2 and sections 3 will give you the most bang for buck in terms of preparation, that leads to a better score at the end of the day. So I would start by preparing for them as early as possible. They also aren't the kind of things that you can cram in the last week or two before the GAMSAT as well. So things like the essay, I would try to get a really good understanding of essay writing, what that involves. And again, you can watch some of the videos that I put on my channel. I would dedicate time to writing essays. It really is a lot about repetition and really feeling comfortable and confident in your essay writing ability, starting really slow, not to time, and then building up to time, building up your speed and your quality of writing as well. And the next thing is obviously section 3. Start to go through some practice questions, figure out a kind of curriculum for yourself about what different questions they ask. Maybe look online if there are any other practice questions or resources that you can find for section 3. As I said in the past, I used the Des O'Neill study books for section 3 when I was preparing for the GAMSAT. I know they're a little bit outdated now, but they were a really great resource in terms of providing a curriculum to study for each of the different components of the science-based questions, as well as providing a heap of practice questions that I could study and simulate the exam as well. At the end of the day, starting is the hardest part, so start as early as you can, and that'll really set you up in the best way possible to be able to put in a solid few months of work before the GAMSAT starts, really giving you the best chance you can. It's really hard to answer these sorts of questions in such a short period of time, but I hope that helps, and feel free to drop any comments below if you have any other questions or any follow-ups you might have as well. Cash for Ash 349. I like your logo, Pies fan. How many words should a typical GAMSAT essay consist of? So again, this is a really common question that I get asked, and I'm going to divert by saying there's no right answer. Ultimately, it's quality, not quantity. But if I had to say and give a specific range and a specific number, I'd say between probably 450 to 600 words. And I say that because majority of the essays that I read and the essays that I've written in the past probably fall in that range. And realistically, you only have half an hour to write an essay, so it doesn't have to be, a couple thousand words long. Each essay should probably fall between that range if you're aiming to get 3 clear, distinct body paragraphs and some solid arguments in there. And at the end of the day, it'll probably come out to about that length. So next question, Tilly Abby says, "Hi Adam, thanks so much for this great video." You're welcome. How long is the GAMSAT score valid for? Is it 4 years now? The answer is yes, it is valid for 4 years now. The GAMSAT score used to only be valid for 2 years or 2 full application cycles, but now it's valid for 4 application cycles, which is really exciting. It means that you can study the GAMSAT as early in your degree or undergraduate degree as you'd like, and it gives you enough chance to really prepare and improve different parts of your application, like your GPA or your interview. So if your GAMSAT score is good enough itself, then it can last a few years, and that can be really helpful. Brooke Roberts 6569 asks, "What do you think about Medify?" Now this is also a pretty common question I get asked. What do you think about the different GAMSAT courses on offer? I don't know too much about Medify. I know about some of the other GAMSAT courses specifically, but I'll say what I say to anyone that asks me that question is that firstly, it's not going to replace studying for the GAMSAT. Just because you're paid for and enrolled in one of these GAMSAT preparation courses, including mine by the way, doesn't mean that you're going to score well at the end of the day. You have to put in the work in your own time. That being said, I think these courses can be great in terms of providing accountability, providing a really great amount of resources and a solid curriculum to help you prepare for the GAMSAT, as well as a community to help you kind of get there as well. But yeah, if you're thinking about these courses, I know they're really expensive, and as I said, the essay guide, my particular essay preparation course, is reasonably affordable. If you have any issues with affordability or you want access to the course and you can't afford the full price, feel free to shoot me an email. I usually am able to help people out, and as I said, you can check it out in the link in the description below, see what you think about all the different courses and see if that's the right thing for you. Next question, Snoop Dogg 5339. What's up, Snoop? Snoop asks, "I love the GAMSAT. I wish I could sit it every day." I'm lying. Well, Snoop, as much as I enjoy making these videos, I would be lying as well if I said to you that I would enjoy sitting the GAMSAT every day. So I think we're on the same page with this one. Thanks for the comment, Snoop. Patrick Isaac asks, "Thank you for the information. I have a question. So to get accepted into Med at Melbourne Uni, you need 70 plus in each section of the GAMSAT, right? Or as a whole? Thanks." Well, Patrick, we kind of covered this a little bit before when I talked about the spreadsheet that has all of the scores that different students submit that represent, the scores in GPA that they needed to get an interview or get a spot into different medical schools. Again, I'll try and find that and drop the link in the description below. But for Melbourne Uni specifically, there are a couple of things that I remember when I was applying that you need to kind of consider. Now, the first being your GAMSAT score. So from memory, and again, this might have changed, so it's worthwhile checking the GEMSAS guide for specifics. But Melbourne Uni, I don't think weights the GAMSAT score like a lot of other unis do. So they weight all sections evenly. So that means if you scored particularly well in section 3, which is multiplied by 2 generally in the GAMSAT score, then your GAMSAT score for Melbourne Uni might actually be a little bit lower because they multiply section 3 by 1 instead of by 2. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, now the next comment is from Amethyst Speaker 6919. Doesn't get more last minute than preparation during the GAMSAT. I'm on my 30-minute break between sections. Jeez. I can't say I'd want to be in that position myself, but I hope all went well for you and it worked out. Yeah, nice work. And the final question, Hadias asks, hey, why aren't you uploading anymore? Well, I'm back making YouTube videos again. I've taken a bit of a break. I've been busy with work and some other really exciting things, which I'll hopefully be able to share with you very shortly, but I'm looking forward to sharing some more videos on the channel soon. And I'm just really grateful of the, small and tight-knit community that we've been able to create with this channel. And I hope that all of you watching get value and find these videos interesting and helpful at the end of the day. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and watch my other videos. It really helps grow the channel. And if you've been waiting for when this next video is going to come out, well, here it is. I'm excited to be back and look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.